Welcome, everyone, to the R.E.S.T podcast, where our goal is to help each and every one of you displace confusion, chaos, and dis-ease in order to heal and find significance in life. I am your host, Natalie Williams, and I am here with the author of the Reconstitution Method for Healing and Rest, Virginia Dixon.
I want to welcome the parents of Riley Chustz, Johnny, and Brandi.
Thank you.
I am so thankful to have you guys here for Thanksgiving this year because we have a long history together. Our listening audience has become acquainted with Riley's story to some extent, and we've had almost 250,000 listeners in the last year and a half. And so most of our listening audience knows Riley's story, and she did the segment Addiction, A Banquet in the Grave. And she did the last 2 segments and another one more recently. But I wanted everyone to hear a little bit about how you met me. And I wanted them to hear about how you got through some of the most difficult things in your life, specifically the loss of your son.
Yeah, so you've been working with Riley over the last 3 years, and, Riley's been on the podcast telling her story. That's one part, and, we lost our son nearly 3 years ago, our middle son.
And again, that was Mccall, that Riley was making arrangements to come work with me then.
Right.
But you lost him just before that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we lost Mccall in a car accident. This happened at night, but I was, I go to work real early. So this was, Monday morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, I get a call from Brandi.
The phone call we all dread.
Yeah. There's a state trooper at our house. They found McCall's Jeep. A Jeep caught on fire. He had a Jeep, and there was 2 people in it. They couldn't identify him. I jump in my truck. I'm calling the first thing, I'm calling my pastor first because he's a part of our small group. That
you've been a part of for 15 years.
And that's the people I call first, and they were at my house waiting on me before I got there. So I'm thankful for that support group. Had I not had that, I don't know where I would be right now.
Brandi, I bet you don't even remember making the call.
I don't, no.
Yeah.
I remember it vividly. It's
and Riley just happened to come home from college because Mccall, right?
Yeah, she came home for probably the week before. She got to spend time, with him.
Isn't that beautiful? When you look back on horrific, painful, traumatic situations, isn't it amazing when you manage to become accustomed, I think, to the numbness that comes with the pain? It's really amazing how God really does go before us. And there are so many blessings.
Right.
There are signs. And when you look back, you see, wow, we were all together. Wow. He called for her. His deepest desire was to be with his sister and the whole family to be together. And you had everybody home. That's amazing because it was finals for Riley during that time.
Right.
Yeah.
So you made it home and everybody got through everything somehow. But you said something this morning that was gripping, and I thought the world has to hear this. Johnny, you said, everything looks good on the outside, and by the grace of God, I managed to get through the darkest moment of my life, mine and Brandi's life and our family's life. But inside, I feel so broken.
Right.
Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So just like you said, people wondering, how do you have it together? How do I do it and function?
Yeah, because you have a significant business to run. You have employees. You have a family to keep together.
Yeah, it's only God. That peace you read about, it's the only way to find a true peace, to go through this tragedy, and be able to give Him thanks and, praise Him. That's the strength. The more thankful the more thanks and praise I give him, it's a habit. I was telling Riley this morning, I wake up at night, I'm just, praising and thanking him. When I get up in the morning, praising and thanking him all day long, it's just praise and thankfulness. That's the power. That's the power of that peace.
Power of faith.
Yeah.
And it's something that does surpass all understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I know, Brandi, that you're just this beautiful human inside and out. But your pilgrimage is a little bit different.
If I didn't have, with God in our life and Johnny being just our rock, because we handled things, differently. I feel like, I've been totally broken like everyone else, but I have kept it together. And I know people do look at me also and say, how does she do it? How does she do it? But I mean, we've got to keep going. We've got our, I think that's what Mccall would want. I think we have our family that's still here.
And you said something so beautiful, and it's so easy to miss. And you said, my husband was my rock. My husband is my rock. Johnny is our rock. And Johnny said something amazing. And he said, experiencing God and the relationship I have with God and the community of men, that's been my rock. And that's the way it's supposed to be. A man must be that rock, but he needs to lean on something bigger than himself.
Right.
And that's how it works. And we need each other, right? I think what's beautiful is that you don't whine about it. You don't complain about it. And you've been very selfless, Johnny, as a man, in how you've shown up for your family. Because having Riley here in California and her feeling called to be here is not easy.
No. That's something, a whole nother issue. We lost Mccall, but I know God's got a plan for Riley. We didn't lose her, but she's so far away, us being from Louisiana, but that's the peace and patience. God's got a plan, and I trust him that he's going to use Riley in huge ways.
Well, look at the transformation you've seen in her.
Right.
I mean, look at the things she's learned, the things she's doing. By the way, the contribution out of pure willpower that she's made to our team, to R.E.S.T, to the expansion of the reach of R.E.S.T, which is really to displace the confusion, chaos, and disease that comes into our lives through the pilgrimage of time, through time, right? In time. And it's brutal. Living is not for the faint of heart. But I think there's an attitude of thankfulness, and that's why I thought, we got to get a snippet of your story. When there is a gratitude of thankfulness, this mysterious beauty emerges out of the ashes of the things we suffer. And I can't think of anything more painful and brutally painful that we experience in the loss of a child. Mm-hmm. But I look at you both and I see so much beauty and kindness and gentleness and devotion to each other, to your community, to me, to the work of God in the lives of people. And there is something beautiful about celebrating with Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
No matter where we find ourselves.
It's a different appreciation of Thanksgiving for us, I'm more grateful, thankful, now than ever. And it just, I appreciate the gifts of God more. I mean, it's a gift. I mean,
What compels you to keep giving thanks in the midst of so much loss?
For me, it's the peace, the precious peace.
That's right.
It's just so...
It surpasses understanding.
Right.
And it doesn't diminish the pain. That's the mystery somehow, right? Because, Brandi, I'm looking at you and I feel the hole in our hearts that remains But that's the mystery, I think. The peace that comes with thankfulness in spite of the pain that really doesn't go away.
No.
And therein lies the mystery of our faith. The first Thanksgiving was a time of great loss in the history of this country, and loss of life, loss of hope in many ways, loss of dreams. There was so much loss, so much fear, so many unknowns. But they did pause to give thanks in the midst of it all. And I trust they encountered the same thing we experienced. The pain didn't go away. The fear was realistic. How are we going to survive? But in the midst of it, they were able to grasp what they had. And it was that statement you made today that really inspired me to say, we got to have a brief conversation about how to be thankful in the midst of unthinkable loss. And it is to have a grateful heart for any shred of goodness that we encounter, that we see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Mccall calling Riley home, that was a beautiful thing. It's one of the most gripping things of the whole story that moves me, is he called her home. That was such a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Do you have any closing words on this Thanksgiving? We get to share this amazing Thanksgiving together. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. I would just like to say that as much as we've been through it, other people's going through things even worse than we've been through. And as hard as it may be, there is hope. There's a peace that
can be theirs.
Yeah, it's there. God wants to give it. It's a gift. But no matter what happens, the hope of that God can give you, that faith, it's always something to be thankful for. It's right in front of our eyes.
It's the promise of peace. If we can find things to be thankful for, it's the promise of peace that comes with forgiveness and gratitude. Right. Because I'm sure in many ways you and Brandi had to forgive yourselves for 1,000 things.
Yeah.
Right. That's one of the hardest things. Because you think, what could I have done differently? How could I have changed this situation?
Yeah.
But it's God's plan, so I couldn't have.
That is. And just hold on to the call that he made to his sister. And the things that only you and Johnny know as parents that he was struggling with, the things that were difficult for him. He's not wrestling with those things anymore. Those things are gone. And so he's living his best life.
Right.
Really. It's hard for us.
It's really hard for us. Yeah. This it's short.
But it just occurred to me. One thing, and I never connected these dots until right now. But the mystery of peace that you both have in the midst of such pain and such loss is almost a guarantee and assurance. He's really living his best life. This was the best thing for him, not for us, but for him. And the mystery of the peace you were talking about this morning is so unthinkable. That you can have such beauty in ashes. And part of it is forgiving yourself, Brandi.
Right.
And then the other part of it is thankfulness. And forgiving all the other parties involved. Just forgiveness and thankfulness. If we can embrace those two things, it is the recipe for a peace that surpasses all understanding. And it's so absurd when you think about it. It just feels absurd. I can never forgive myself or anybody else. And how can I be thankful for anything? All I have is regret. But if we can see, no, that's the equation of time in the world, but that's not the formula that God gives us to get a glimpse of how he works in the lives of men and nations. Forgive, give thanks, and you'll get a glimpse of me.
Right.
And I think what you said today just gave me a profound understanding of this mystery, because they're not things you can will, right, into understanding. They're things you just have to experience through suffering. But for the first time ever, I've often said to you, Mccall's like so here for me. It's such a bizarre feeling, right? Because I've worked with Riley so closely. But you just gave me a glimpse of what life is for him now. And it just gave me this chill, this sense of, wow, that is ultimately how we learn to love, is to release what happens and what we encounter in time to providence.
Well, I think that one of the things that helps me is every day he does give me a sign. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm thankful, that I've here for another day. But just seeing his signs and knowing that he's all around me. Yeah.
Tell us about that, because I hear this consistently from everybody who's experienced a significant loss, who's thankful. I hear what you're going to say, and I want everybody else to hear it from you, because it's amazing.
About with the bird?
The birds.
For the board.
Yes.
Yeah, there's everywhere I go, it seems, he shows up, a red cardinal. And just this weekend, there was a party that he would have, definitely been a part of. And as we're, getting ready and rushing around.
It was his cousin, for his cousin, right?
Yes, for his cousin. And I hear this, this noise, and I look up, and a cardinal ran into the window, like right where I was standing. It's like ran into the window and then just kind of sits there for a second and then turns around and flies off. So I know that he was telling us, hey, I see y'all. I see what you're doing. I'm there with you.
All the time, though. These cardinals show up all the time.
Every single day. There's
Every day.
Something.
That's amazing. And how about the cardinal shortly after he passed? Tell us, we'll finish with this story because it's amazing.
The one that I had held. Mm-hmm. So I had another one that had ran into the window. And I look outside and he's just laying there. So I go out and I pick him up and I'm holding him, which was just something that I never thought that I would be doing. And he's just sat there for about an hour, just not moving. And Riley had called right at that same time. So I said, FaceTime me, you can look what I'm doing. So she got to see the cardinal. Johnny comes home, he gets to see him. We're sitting there. I'm like, go get a box. I guess he's settling in for the night. Landon comes out and he sees him. And
so the whole family.
The whole family. And it was like he was waiting to see each one of us. And as soon as Landon walked out, he flew away. So
I love that.
Like, I know that he was just waiting for all of us to, to say hello and goodbye. And, I'm there with you.
I love that story because, and I'll share this with our listening audience, we had a private celebration of life for Jane, Nightbird. And when Riley and I were preparing, it was a really, really tough time for me. It took me almost 3 weeks, if not a month, to do this. But Mitchell, her brother, came in from out of town, and some of us who had been her doctors and practitioners came together, and a few acquaintances from the clinic. And while we were setting up here in this sanctuary in the canyon at the villa, 2 little hummingbirds came. It was 2 that came. And we see hummingbirds all the time, so I'm familiar with their patterns. But they hovered and hovered over Jane's pictures right there at the bottom of the landing as the guests would come in. And they didn't both just hover, but one went to Riley and one went to me by the front door and under this olive tree and hovered. She and I looked at each other And what Riley said, it's Mccall and Jane. I know it sounds crazy, not that I don't believe that people reincarnate and come in the form of birds or anything, but I think in the spiritual realm, it's these beautiful indications that, hey, eternity is right here. The veil's very thin, and the distance isn't what you think it is. And I give thanks. And the most beautiful Thanksgiving, I think, comes from our pain. But forgiveness is the tough one. Yeah. And I want to encourage everyone listening to us today that that's our message of love to you. I look good on the outside, like Johnny said, but inside I'm broken. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to hold the pain, the loss, and the peace together. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So happy to celebrate Thanksgiving with you, as is my entire family, I might add. So it's a very special Thanksgiving.
It's our honor. Thank you.
All right, everyone. For updates about R.E.S.T and this podcast, please visit our Instagram or Facebook, The Place of R.E.S.T. If you would like more information about Virginia or to support and join the cause of R.E.S.T, please go to virginiadixon.com/collaborate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to R.E.S.T with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.